Chapter 11 Blackwings. Two fully armored knights of Solomon stand guard at the door leading to Endelgion's magical armory. Masters Taurus Forgeron and Mahita Haronda approach them, presenting the sealed scroll of access written by the Council of Elders. One of the knights, a gruff veteran magician of nearly 50 years, extends his hand to take hold of and inspect the spell. Impedimentum abeo, Christopher Harrison commands, causing the seal to evaporate into tiny sparks of light. He unfolds the scroll and reads the details of access, learning what items the two masters are granted permission to take. Level 6 access, he says, indicating they have been given the authority to enter the 6th level of the armory. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most dangerous items, the armory opens up by an advanced order of spells, which lock together and overlap with increasing levels of complexity. The entire system is very similar to the archives, but is much more fortified. At least 2 magicians, each knowing all of the locking and unlocking spells of each of the 10 levels, must simultaneously call forth the symbols needed for opening and rotate them in the correct patterns to undo each barrier. Visualizing the symbols of opening, each knight begins to lock the symbols into place in their minds, before spinning their hands as if they were attached to a great invisible wheel. At the appropriate times, each ceases spinning or reverses their direction until the first 5 magical locks dissipate temporarily. As the 6th lock opens, a doorway appears, leading into the magical armory. Any item that is removed must be documented and given authorization by both of us before you may leave the armory, the other knight, named Dominique Warren, says. The scroll says you are to have a team consisting of 3 provosts and 6 apprentices. You may receive no more than 110 blast spheres, 12 teleportation orbs, and 12 communication orbs. 1 member of your team cannot be delegated to carry all of your equipment in the event they are incapacitated. To divide your gear up accordingly. Do you understand these conditions? Forgeron nods. Yes, that many blast spheres banging together could detonate, and the results would be catastrophic. It would only make the most sense to have them split up among us all. Master Scrimauer is in possession of the Ritus Sanguium Insaniatio. Because of this, he is believed to be able to summon at least one of the saints, Warren adds. Are you capable of effectively dismissing the saints? I am, Forgeron replies confidently. I can also perform a sealing spell on the caster that will block their ability to tap into their magical aura again for a limited time. The more appropriate question should be, is everyone on your team capable of these feats? Should you be taken out by unforeseen circumstances, will the others be able to complete their mission? Harrison interrupts. This team was meticulously chosen based on experience and capability. Any gaps in training for this mission can be quickly amended in the field, Forgeron replies. His answer seems satisfactory to the knights, who allow them to pass into the armory. We will add on our letter of approval that the conditions of anti-summoning and sorcerer bindings must be taught to each member of the team, as well as the wards against the Saint Matio, Warren adds. Forgeron walks around the armory, knowing exactly where to go to find each necessary item. He has been on hundreds of missions and been granted clearance up to level 8 before in the past. Carefully, the master chooses pre-made spell orbs, which when shattered will release the sealed incantation and energy captured within by the original caster. Blast spheres containing violently swirling balls of red light rest in indented grooves upon a large shelf that is made several meters wide, but goes further back into the armory than the men can see with their eyes. Selecting 10 blast spheres per team member, Forgeron places them inside of a special pouch that condenses them for mass transport. Magical sigils are marked on the bag, and in order to restore them to original size, one must speak the words of condensation in reverse. Through this process, the 2 master magicians build an arsenal of smoke blast orbs, elemental blast orbs, such as those containing offensive spells for fire, ice, and lightning. Binding spheres, which when shattered, will wrap the target in a restrictive tar-like substance. And orbs of silence, that block the target's ability to speak or even visualize spells within their mind. The final listed orbs will be useful in training the young magicians quickly in the methods of combating a skilled master-level sorcerer. It's possible, though, that skilled magicians such as Scrimauer will be able to ward off these attacks, and those scenarios must be planned for in advance as well. Make sure you grab teleportation spheres, Master Hironda says, placing several more blast spheres into a condensing satchel. With such a young group to comprise their team, an emergency failsafe is needed to extract any member from danger and return them back to Endelgian. Hironda wonders why so many apprentices were chosen for this mission, when the previous team that failed was comprised of 4 masters and 5 provosts. Even more puzzling is why the Council of Elders approved Master Fordron's selections without debate. Without adequate combat experience, many of these still teenage magicians will not return home alive. Are you planning on retreating? Fordron asks, taunting the Elder Master. Hironda does not particularly care for Master Fordron, but in reality not many of the other masters do. His arrogance is unmatched within the community, and his recklessness and unorthodox tactics are nigh legendary. Master Fordron pauses, remembering a similar spot where he is standing, within the 8th level of the armory, tasked with taking down an immensely powerful necromancer, controlling an army of hundreds of the undead, revenants, and ghouls. Fordron and Master Vale Giortho had to receive weapons and spells from one of the most highly secured vaults in existence. Within the 8th level of the armory are swords enchanted with the ability to grant life to the dead and take life instantly away from the living with a single touch. Also within the level 8 security are weapons confiscated from battles with manifested devilney and possessed sorcerers who are able to devise terrible dark magics and convert them into cursed weaponry. Had they just granted us level 8 access, we would be able to bring Scrimauer down without any casualties on our side. With only level 6 access, we'll be fighting a lion with our hands bound behind our backs, Fordron complains. If Adrian truly has become so powerful, why has he not been dealt with by an entire squad of knights? Hironda asks. The council hopes to catch him off guard. He'll be expecting a large tactical response after dispatching the last team. Faced with apprentices, knowing him, he'll be laughing at the lack of a challenge, Fordron says with a smile. That's when I hope to unleash a secret weapon upon him that he could never expect, and one that he will have no defense against. Master Hironda wonders what secret weapon Fordron could possibly be alluding to. With a team of mostly apprentices, even a carefully laid strategy could fall apart due to inexperience. They finish gathering their supplies, double-check their inventory with Harrison and Warren, then return to the Tower of the Aviary, where Master Fordron and the Blackwing Society are housed. I have one final member of this team to gather. Please ready the others until I return, Fordron asks Hironda. Danny exits her room to find Masters Diota and Fordron arguing in the main hall. She's both confused and surprised at the sight. Most of the masters, while veiled hostility exists, do not openly engage in arguments such as these. She wonders what is so important to have these men divided. She's still recovering from the last mission you dragged her on, or have you forgotten? Master Diota asks, pointing a finger into Master Fordron's chest. We need her on the team. You do the girl no favors trying to keep her sheltered. Within her exists a great power that needs to be brought to maturity. Hiding her away and teaching her apprentice-level spells holds her back. Danny is skillful enough to be learning the same lessons as Provost Karyani. Experience in battle will teach her what you cannot. You are not her master, Diota says angrily. Whatever power exists within her will not be influenced by you or your Blackwings. Scrimauer has taken out 2 experienced assassination squads, He will not expect such power to come from a team with so many apprentices on it. Danny could be the key to defeating him, Fordron says. More likely, she will be killed along with whomever else you bring before the rogue as a sacrifice. We are not ready to face him. Cyril and Desmond's teams have made that abundantly clear. We need more preparation to develop countermeasures for the Sansmanio and his puppetry magic. Not ready? We've allowed him to gather strength and hone his skills for 8 years. We cannot turn a blind eye to him any longer. Danny approaches them, interrupting their argument. Am I allowed to have a say in my own life, or is it up to you alone? She asks. First she turns to Master Fordron. You put me in a situation where I almost died, because you withheld information from me. I knew next to nothing about the Revenants, or its powers. Apprentices spend years learning the strengths and weaknesses of the monsters that they could one day face. Yet you threw me before the Revenant, and simply said, don't die. Well, I didn't die. But I see that much more as a result of luck than my personal strengths. Master Fordron nods, knowing that nothing the girl says to be untrue. As a leader, he's had to make many difficult decisions and make them quickly. In his mind, spending any more time explaining to Danny the history and biology of supernatural creatures would have led to even more lives lost. Weighing his choices, he does not regret his decision. And you, she continues, turning to Master Deoda. I know you only wish to keep me safe, but we both know I'm unlike other apprentices. I've seen more death and pain than many will in their entire lives. I accept that there will never be peace in my life without violence. It follows me like a hungry dog. I'm damaged, and I'm never going to be like anyone else. Danny, Deoda whispers in sadness. What is this mission, Master Fordron? Danny asks. I need to be fully informed this time if I'm going to be taking part. No more holding anything back from me. Fordron nods in respect. Master Deoda's heart sinks, still feeling the lingering traces of Danny's previous darkness. The girl's aura remains tinged with evil, and try as he might, he cannot ignore that one wrong step could push her back down a path from which he cannot save her. It's not been enough time, Deoda thinks. I still haven't yet repaired the damage Schaefer did to this poor girl. The candidates for the strike team are gathered at the tower, where the two masters will prep and equip them for the mission before they head up to the twin towers of the Knights of Solomon, where the portal to the Kishar realm will be opened. Dividing out their supplies, the magicians double-check the various powders, oils, and prepared spell orbs, which contain ready-to-use incantations. The youngest apprentices selected for this mission are brought together by Provost Zachariah Fisher to help explain to them each tool and how to use them. Here, this is blast powder, Fisher tells the mouse-like Caitlin Abbott. With a single incantation, the powder will ignite and can cause a large-scale explosion. Abbott nods and takes the leather sack containing the powder. Beside her, another apprentice named Sen Paza attempts to wield an enchanted sword, much too large for his wiry teenage frame. No offense, but you aren't quite strong enough for a sword like that, Fisher says, taking the long sword away from the 18-year-old from Brazil. This is more your size, he adds, handing the young man a smaller blade that he's able to swing with greater ease. The other sword belonged to a powerful king named Chihiro Akiko. It's said that he killed 200 ghouls in a single battle with that enchanted steel. Is there a story behind this one? Panza asks, looking over the smaller weapon. Fisher pats the younger man on the back and smiles before going over to the others to see if they need any more assistance. You will write one for it today with your bravery. The third of the young apprentices selected to accompany the more experienced Blackwings on the mission is a dark-haired Saudi named Urvashi Nobili. Nobili is unable to decide which prepared spell orb she will carry. The contents of the orbs range from simple glamours to alter one's appearance to devastating elemental combat spells. With your lack of field experience, most likely Master Fordron will place you as part of the barrier medical units. Since you would be too busy performing those duties to be able to cast spells to protect yourselves, I think you should carry Orbs containing shielding or reflective magic. Forgeron approaches, taking his former apprentice aside. Everyone is surprised to see Danny has entered with the master. You are doing very well leading these young ones. When we return, I shall recommend that you be taking on your own pupils. Fisher's eyes light up at the words of praise from his longtime hero and master. Yes, sir. Thank you. Grab your own gear now and hurry so that we may begin the mission. Fisher equips Danny with the same orbs as the others, and makes sure that she has the correct gear for hiking and navigating the terrain. Scrimauer is held up in a cabin near a remote Florida swamp. The route we should take should be mostly on land, but we will have to go through waters as high as our chest. Be prepared for snakes and other living threats. Forgeron warns the younger magicians as he inspects an enchanted sword. He rearranges the glyphs on the blade, correcting the work of one of his provis. When we arrive, I shall do my best to repel the wildlife, touching their minds with a spell to deter their interest in us. The possibility still exists that some will resist or be missed by the spell altogether, so you must remain alert at all times. Dangers of the magical kind will also surely present themselves, Master Hironda adds. Scrimauer likely dealt crippling blows to our predecessors through the use of spells triggered through hidden traps. At no time is anyone to let their guards down, and report anything suspicious to either myself or Master Forgeron. What kind of magic does Scrimauer use? Danny asks. She cannot help but be reminded that the very man they now hunt spent time aiding Radnovich in his training of Jake. Could Jake have more recent knowledge of Scrimauer's abilities? She wonders if she should bring this up, but decides against it. 2 magicians were already killed for being assigned the duty of keeping tabs on Jake's movements. The elders decided afterwards that the risk of losing any more lives cannot be taken until the immediate threat of the rogue magician has been dealt with. Whatever trouble Jake has gotten himself wrapped up in, will have to wait until after the capture of Adrian Scrimauer. The rogue's past actions have made it abundantly clear that he poses a more immediate danger to the magicians of Endelgian than even the possible resurgence of Yamura. When he still was a member of our ranks, he was very well-rounded. We knew of no preferred types of magic that he used. After his defection, however, it was revealed to us by Master Aronio that Scrimauer had kept his specialization a secret from us, Forgeron explains. Master Aronio was able to send us a detailed message of Scrimauer's hidden abilities before he passed away from injuries he sustained in their battle. Scrimauer has the ability to weave his spirit into that of other beings like powerful and invisible threads. By manipulating these spirit threads, Scrimauer can practice a form of forbidden control magic that renders his victims as nothing more than marionettes for his amusement. Is there any way to sever his puppet magic? Provis Chua Drahele asks. The spells to perform this type of control are complex, and as such, require hours of breaking by skilled dispelling units. In a combat situation, rendering the puppeteer unconscious is the only sure way to stop his puppets without resorting to killing them, Master Hironda says. The disgust in his voice is apparent. To most magicians, puppetry magic is among the most vile and deplorable of all. Killing his puppets will not necessarily end his control over them, unless their bodies are completely destroyed or incapacitated. It has been confirmed that Scrimauer is able to control the corpses of his victims with an especially dark form of his puppetry, Forgeron adds. And what about the Saints Mania? Danny asks. I heard you and Master Diota mention that word. What is it? The other magicians become ghostly pale. The Sansmania, or the Saints of Destruction, are an especially ruthless and powerful sect of the Devilnay, left over from before even the Wars of Falling. These monsters were the most pure evil in all creation, and were quite unlike anything else around in their day. The Yazata quickly saw the threat that the Saints posed, and the world of hell was first devised to keep them segregated from all other creation. Unfortunately, not even this was enough to contain the saints. The Yazata then banished them into the abyss that exists beyond all worlds. Yet again they were unable to destroy them. As Fordron continues, the apprentices appear to have been drained of all confidence and hope. He tries to wrap his story up and find a way to restore their optimism. The saints were permanently blocked by Yazatan magic from fully existing in any single reality at a given time. Because of this, black magic practitioners who learned how to call upon the saints can only summon a minuscule fraction of their power. The most skilled black magicians cannot bring forth barely even a shadow of the true saints. No one can ever break down a barrier erected by the beings that were the architects of all magic itself. Yes, Scrimar can summon the saints, due to a book he stole from our vault, but even in the worst case scenario, he can only bring about 1/10 of 1% of a saint's full power. Danny scowls. Why does that not make me feel any better? Eliphas Levi himself could only bring forth that much of a single saint's power, and at best, 2 at 1/50th of 1% of their full power, and he was the greatest black magician of all time. Scrimar could not exceed him in summoning skill, Fordron says, trying to reassure his team. Eliphas Levi? Danny recalls her extensive reading of the man's life and works. Could the book Scrimar stole be a volume from Levi's own collection? After the Blackwings are armed and ready, Fordron leads them out of the Tower of Aviary towards the Tower of Transmission within the grounds of the Knights of Solomon. There, they will meet up with the teleportation team that will be transferring them to the lower world. When we move in, I need the 3 of you on support magic, in case the entire perimeter and barriers and prevent any escape while casting enhancements of speed and agility on the rest of us, Fordron says to Apprentice Nobili and Provis Drahele and Dirdon Javad. Fisher, Abbott, the 2 of you will comprise our medical unit. Quickly take care of our injured and monitor our vitals as well as our energy levels. The remainder of us will be the primary combat team. It will be up to us to distract and attempt to incapacitate and apprehend our target, while the stealth unit slips in undetected to extract any possible survivors from the previous teams. The Blackwings reach the tower where a large spell array has long been carved into the ground. 6 of the Knights of Solomon surround the circle while the team steps in position at the center. The knights begin to chant until they simultaneously kneel and place their palms onto the array. The circle glows brightly, and soon the Blackwings find themselves transported into the marshy grassland on the outskirts of a remote cypress swamp in southern Florida. The location is a tactical position nearby the last reported sighting of Scrimar given to them by both the late Master Cyril Nando and Desmond Aronio. Immediately upon arrival, the Blackwings trigger a spell circle trap set for them. He predicted our entry point. Stay alert and form up, Fordron shouts as the ground begins to light up with a blinding red glow. Stone hands erupt from below, grabbing hold of Abbott and Panza. 3 other hands attempt the same but are evaded by their targets. Into Marian, softening art, Master Hironda shouts, realigning the composition of the stone hands and weakening them enough to be easily broken. Thank you, Master, Abbott says, crouching to gather up her dropped satchel and the supplies from within that were spilled out. Those assigned to the healing unit must be the last to fall in battle and avoid conflict whenever possible, Hironda says. That is the single most important task for a magician assigned to the medical team. 3 figures dart across the sky, raining conjured blades down on the group. Javad erects a quick barrier, forming a dome of energy over her comrades and deflecting the projectiles. Go after them, Fordron orders Provost Keith Demerit and John Katz. The combat-oriented mages spring into the air in pursuit of the fleeing guerrilla-style attackers. Javad weaves a spiderweb barrier ahead of the fleeing attackers and gives Demerit and Katz the opportunity to catch up. Wielding enchanted blades, the 2 magicians dart into the midst of the disoriented rogues. Their swords flashing like silver blurs, the 2 magicians cut through their opponents with amazing speed and finesse. Two of the rogues plummet to the ground as blood trails from deep slashes across their chests. Stabilize their wounds and seal them into barrier tombs for transport, Fordron orders his barrier unit. We need to keep them alive and find out anything they know about Scrimauer and any other potential traps he may have lying in wait. I didn't think Scrimauer had recruited any others into his defection, Haronda questions, wondering where the lapse in their information lies. We will not know for sure until they are incapacitated and are no longer attacking us. Then we will have the luxury of interrogation. A third rogue transforms his arms into massive claws and covers his body with an armored shell. Demerit darts in with another slash, but the blow is deflected off the armored plating. While the provost reels back, the rogue slashes him diagonally with both of his oversized claws. The magician's eyes roll back and his skin becomes ghostly white as blood sprays out from the cuts in a flood of crimson. "Master Forgeron!" Abbott shouts with alarm. The master quickly rushes to the girl's side to find that the bodies of the two disabled rogues are nothing more than lifeless cadavers. Not only are they corpses, they are the corpses of members of Master Aronio's strike team. "Puppet magic," Fordron growls, pushing Abbott aside as the corpses reanimate and lash out violently. "Aginestra Gesara!" He conjures flames below the bodies and reduces them to ash in an instant before their attacks can reach anyone. He looks over to Fisher, who kneels over Demerit, consuming him in the warm glow of healing magic. Sweating hard, Fisher maintains his concentration in trying to stop the bleeding of his comrade. The wounds close, and the young man's bleeding begins to stabilize. Master Haronda materializes behind the third puppet magician, slapping his hands together and conjuring a gust of powerful wind. The puppet crashes to the ground like a meteor, while Provost Katz awaits with his enchanted sword. One expert swing later, and the puppet's head is severed. The already lifeless body again drops to the ground, cut off from its source of animation. "Damn it!" Fordron curses as the body of the third puppet drops into the marsh. "He has tested our battle strength with his exercise. We're now at a severe disadvantage." He looks down at the face of the corpse with horror. "Master Cadets," Fordron whispers. Haronda shakes his head in disgust. "Now we know what happened to the other teams that were sent after Scrimauer." Fordron nods. "He's turning the bodies of our dead comrades into weapons against us." "We need to be careful," Haronda cautions. "Running into puppet versions of Master Nando or Master Aronio would be very bad." Danny overhears their whispered conversation. "Are the other masters that were sent after Scrimauer that strong?" "In combat, Master Cyril Nando could wipe out our entire team by himself. We have to hope that he had the instinct to destroy himself rather than allow his body to be controlled after death," Fordron says. Perched atop a branch overlooking the magicians, a large raven watches carefully. Every movement and word said is captured by the bird's attention and relayed to its master. "A formidable unit. 2 masters, 5 provosts, and 4 apprentices. 2 assigned to be medics, 3 as a barrier unit, and the rest appear to be strictly combat. A majority of the group consists of Blackwings," Scrimauer observes, watching through his raven's eyes. A small bowl containing the rogue's blood rests beside the bodies of his acquired magician puppets. Connected to Scrimauer through the dark spell, the blood bubbles and conveys his will to each of them as they begin to animate. Eliminate the 2 support units first. After that is accomplished, we can focus on the greater threats of Haronda and Forgeron. The blood splashes in conjunction with the raven flapping its wings and flying to another branch as the group begins to move forward into the swamp. "Go greet our guests," Scrimauer says to 2 of his puppets, fallen members of Master Nando's team. It was by using this method of turning friend into foe that Nando was defeated, and dealt the lethal wounds that led to his ultimate fate. "That seems like a pretty unfair power," Danny says. Familiar with control magic via Badari al-Controle, she finds it hard to believe one can be so powerful to exert so much influence over another to turn them into a full puppet. Dark magic has that quality. Often the darker path is much easier and stronger. Walking the side of light is difficult and a constant struggle, Master Hirondo replies. Is it too late to switch teams? Danny jokes. No one laughs. Do not allow yourself any negative thoughts. They will cloud your reason and potentially leave you open to Scrimmaur's influence. We do not yet know the full extent of his abilities. It is possible that he can ensnare new puppets at will. If Scrimmaur is so dangerous, why didn't the elders just send like 20 or 30 knights after him? Abbott asks. I mean, why send apprentices like us along at all? The question is one that Danny herself has wondered. Why send only 2 or 3 masters against Scrimmaur at a time, instead of sending a full-force assault to crush him? The rogue has already proven he can defeat small task forces of masters through his slaughtering of both Cyril Nando and Desmond Arono's teams. Scrimmaur has been able to turn allies against us with his puppetry magic. Do you wish to know how you would fare against 20 or 30 magically controlled puppet knights? Fordron explains. It is more reasonable for us to try and eliminate him with small infiltration units. Even if we are to fail, the fallout of us coming under his control would not be as devastating to the security of Endelgian as a whole. How are you so calm? Abbott asks Danny as she stands surveying the area silently for any new signs of threat. Danny seems to barely hear the other girl, responding much later after she's already finished speaking. I guess having my life in danger has become such a common occurrence that I must be used to it. That's a terrible thing to get used to. With a shrug, Danny replies, I can't argue that. My life hasn't exactly been full of rainbows and happy endings. Before I ever got here, I thought I was going to die more than once. When I faced off against the Sakari called Yamura, I really did die. At least for a little while. She pauses, still unsure of how things turned out the way they did. Somehow I was restored. The scars of that fight still carry with me every day. Was your first mission as rough? Shoot, my first official mission was like only a day ago. Danny laughs. It was pretty bad, though. I thought for sure I was going to die. There was this thing called a revenant, and it was running around sucking down people's lives like jello shooters. You were on that revenant mission in the other world? How'd you survive that? I heard about it being really nasty. Master Forgeron saved our asses. He's a real beast, you know. I wouldn't want to be on his bad side, that's for sure. Abbott nods. Master Forgeron is amazing. I'm really blessed to be this close to being a part of his team. You aren't a Blackwing already? I wish, Abbott blurts out, quickly covering her mouth as several of the other magicians steal a glance backward. I'm just a pledge, she whispers. A Provost Blackwing can take up to 2 apprentices. If the training meets Master Forgeron's standards, he'll recommend the Provost to the elders for his master robe. The apprentice will be taken in as a full Blackwing. He points over to Provost Javad. He's my instructor. My real master is Jireh Negan, but she isn't a Blackwing. Abbott shows Danny the tattoo of a yellow lily on her neck, just above her right collar. Your master doesn't object to someone else taking over your training? It isn't really taking over. She finds it hard to explain. Blackwing training is more supplemental. Javad only teaches me things that would make me an adequate member of the Blackwing Society. Master Negan is still responsible for my Provost training. Getting into the Blackwings seems pretty tough. Yeah, it is. This is actually my second attempt. Last summer, Provost Lillian Rom tried to prep me, but it was unsatisfactory, and I was denied, and she was demoted back to an apprentice. She's only just recently regained her Provost robe. I've met her. She was on the team that was sent to destroy the Revenant. She seemed capable enough. The Blackwings only accept the best. Adequate or capable don't cut it. Master Forgeron will not take anything less than the absolute best. You sound like you have a little teacher crush. Danny laughs. She never crushed on any of her teachers in school, but remembers the boys of her class going nuts about Miss Arianda Luisa, the Spanish teacher. Who doesn't? Abbott blushes. Master Forgeron is the most skillful and brilliant of all Endelgian's magicians. She shoots Danny a sly grin. Don't be too judgmental. I've seen the way you giggle at everything Lieutenant Nando says. I don't. Do I really? Danny laughs. He's so hot, though. Both girls laugh, bonding during the tense situation. Forgeron makes a clicking noise with his tongue, shooting a quick glance back at the girls. Stay silent for now. We need to completely be alert and in control of our senses. Yes, sir, Danny says, saluting the master. Once his back is turned, both girls resume their giggling, albeit muffled. The magicians exit the marsh and cross through the tree line into the swamp proper. Here, the water rises to the waists of the tallest members and the necks of the shortest. The visibility is zero in the black water, teeming with stirred-up organic material and sediment. Abbott squeals, causing everyone to spin in fear of an ambush. Leeches, the girl whimpers, peeling one of the slug-like vampires from her shoulder. Deal with it, Forgeron growls. It won't be the leeches that kill you if you don't remain quiet. Drahele uses both hands to imitate the chomping action of an alligator's massive jaws. Abbott shudders in terror, thinking of the horrible creatures lurking just below the water's surface. Don't let him frighten you, Danny says, shooting Drahele a dirty look. You aren't going to get dragged under by any alligators. What would you know, Yankee? Drahele spits back. Have you even seen a gator? I don't know. Have you ever seen a mirror? Danny replies. Drahele balls his fists in anger and makes a move towards Danny, but is stopped by Master Forgeron. Children, please control your emotions. This mission is far too delicate, and the dangers around us are far too great for your incessant bickering. If you cannot work as a team, I will send you back. The teens nod, both feeling ashamed of their behavior. The emotions are high, and they realize they are letting the tension get the best of them. Be on the lookout for more of those puppets, Forgeron whispers, pointing to the trees as they continue on. The yellow eyes of a gator breaks the surface of the water ahead. Before his group can panic, Forgeron draws within his mind the elemental symbols needed to create an electrical spark. Touching the creature's nose from afar, the master frightens off the predator without ever having to lift a finger. He opens his eyes, and they proceed as the gator turns, vanishing into the black water. What is the world like right now? Apprentice Ponza asks, slowly to fall back with Danny and Abbott, who are closest to her in age and experience. Has it been a while since you went home? Danny asks. 2 years. I was sent by my parents to train under Master Chris Guerrero after I began showing signs that I had abilities. Many of the people in our small town began to grow frightened, and my parents did not wish for me to become an outcast or hated, so I was given this opportunity to use my gifts to change how the world sees people like us. Danny thinks about how even her own peers back home in Rockland viewed her and nods. Yeah, people can be pretty close-minded sometimes. Do you still get mail or anything from your parents? Abbott asks. She remains in regular contact with her older sister and father. Her mother died in an accident when she was very young. Not as often as I would like. My father is a doctor and my mother cares for my 7 brothers and sisters. There's not a lot of time left in the day to think about me. I don't believe that for a minute, Danny says. I'm sure they think about you every day. Perhaps you're right, Apprentice Livingston. Call me Danny, she replies, smiling. Anyway, the world isn't too different from 2 years ago. My country's pretty much summed up by our president and his sex life. The O.J. Simpson trial and the Unabomber the last few years. Let's see, what else? Posh Spice got engaged to David Beckham. Eddie Murphy got caught with a tranny. Ellen came out of the closet. George Lucas has been releasing shitty special editions of his Star Wars movies. And the last episode of Seinfeld aired. I can't really speak too much for the rest of the world. I never did pay too much attention to global issues, unfortunately. I think maybe there were a few embassy bombings in Africa? Ponza understands. You're an American, yes? I have several American pop music CDs that I listen to at home. Danny grimaces, trying to fake a smile. Yeah, that isn't exactly my kind of amusement. I tend to listen more to alternative and rock. Like Manson and the Smashing Pumpkins. Well, I just love pop music, Abbott interrupts, putting her arm around Panza. What CDs do you have? Suddenly, Abbott again squeals, making a loud splash. Forgeron turns around in anger, ready to smash a teleportation orb and send the girl back home. She's gone, Danny shouts. She was just there and then just disappeared. Damn it! Feel around with your hands and try to pull her up, Forgeron orders, trying to remain calm for their sake. Fearing the girl has stumbled into the one of the swamp's most dangerous perils, Forgeron desperately searches beneath the surface for her. In swamps, the ground can become so built up with soft organic material that it can create pitfalls akin to quicksand. With nothing solid to grab a hold of, a victim will merely claw at the decayed leaf litter and mud as they sink deeper and deeper before becoming trapped. The master closes his eyes and concentrates on overlaying a spell in his mind that requires intense focus. Sparks of light blossom behind his eyelids, and he opens them up to see the world in a much different way. The light of life blazes in Forgeron's vision. Each member of his team burns like a small star before him. Fireballs of wildlife ranging from insects, birds, fish, and small mammals nearly overwhelm him, and he's forced to push them all aside and look down into the water for his lost team member. The bright visage of Abbott is seen struggling with a black void of death. No life exists within the black shadow, and yet it still claws at the girl, trying to drag her down into the depths. Forgeron quickly calls forth the glyphs for fire and water, combining them into an underwater explosion that separates Abbott from her attacker. Bubbles cover the surface and Abbott rises, coughing for air. Are you all right? Danny asks, rushing to the girl. Something grabbed my leg and pulled me under, she says, her chest heaving. Drahele laughs. You probably just stepped into a pocket of deep mud. Originally from Louisiana, Drahele is confident of his knowledge of swamp living and its perils. Are you sure that you felt something grab you and not just brush your leg as you sank? Haronda asks. Abbott nods. I'm not as stupid as you all think. I can tell the difference between a fish or a branch and a person's hand. I don't think you're stupid, Panza smiles. Danny nods in agreement. Abbott appreciates the support. She's being truthful, Forgeron says, blinking several times to clear his vision of the enhancement. Out of the water and into the trees. More of the puppets may be lurking out of sight. What are you talking about? Did you see something? Haronda asks. Scrimmauer's puppets are corpses. Do you think they need to breathe? Forgeron asks, easily scrambling up the trunk of a large cypress tree. Haronda imagines the swamp filled with the waiting arms of the zombie puppets and shudders before following the other master out of the water. The remainder of the team does as ordered, crawling out of the swamp and onto the overhanging limbs and tree trunks like frightened squirrels. Last to climb up, Abbott is almost pulled back into the water as a bony hand rises, but snatches only air. Stay in the trees and follow me, Forgeron shouts, leaping to the limbs of the next tree in its path. It is during moments such as this that the apprentices are prepared for to not only be skilled in spellcasting, but also to have excellent physical conditioning. As the magicians leap tree to tree in the mimicry of a monkey troupe, the two corpse puppets lurking below follow them without breaking the surface. Seeing through his raven's eyes, Scrimmauer smiles. The rogue is impressed at the resourcefulness of his pursuers. He would have bet money that at least two of the apprentices would have been drowned by his sneak attack. Well, let's see how they handle this, Scrimmauer laughs, exiting his cabin and orientating himself in the same direction as his spying bird. Muerte, desde arriba. Sky fills with the fiery colossus of a descending meteor. Forgeron snaps off a branch containing a sleeping moccasin as he nearly grabs a hold of it. The snake hits the water and slithers away in irritation at being so rudely awoken. Keep up, the master shouts. Behind him, the majority of the team has drastically fallen behind. The roaring of an enormous object cutting through the atmosphere draws their attention. Resembling a second sun in the sky, the fiery meteor begins its plummet directly towards the magicians. As it nears, the object increases in size until it becomes so large that it blocks the light from the sky. "What is that?" Fisher asks, catching up to Fordron. "Shit," Fordron whispers. Every part of him wants to panic and order his team to smash their teleportation orbs and return to Endelgian and retreat. A nagging voice in the back of his mind reminds the Master that no one else can stop the rogue. Only the man who set him upon his current destructive path has any chance of bringing Scrimauer to justice. "Everyone, raise your strongest barriers!" The treetops light up with the glow of protective energy. As the meteor nears, unprotected trees instantly turn to ash. The swampy ground and waters dry to cracked desert terrain. The object slams into the barriers, and the weaker apprentices struggle to remain in control as a tremendous release of energy vibrates from the impact. Abbott begins to slip, but Danny reaches out, locking hands with her. "We can hold the line together, right?" Danny says with a reassuring smile. She strains to keep focused on maintaining her barrier, despite the look of confidence projected. Master Fordron and Haronda scream, pushing the energy of their barriers upwards and attempting to divert the meteor back into the sky. "If that hits the Earth, it will be like several hundred nuclear bombs going off in our faces. Don't let up no matter what," Fordron shouts. "Why would he do something like this?" Fisher asks, straining to push more of his energy into the barrier. "If the meteor hits, he'd be killed too. As would most of the life on this planet. He's counting on us stopping it at the cost of all of our stamina." Sweat pours off Fordron's face, making it hard for the man to see. "If we face him after this, we'll be at an even greater disadvantage than before." "I have an idea," Haronda says, also covered with sweat. "Can you pick up the slack for me for a few moments?" Fordron grinds his teeth together, pushing more of his energy into the barrier and raising the meteor off of them almost an entire inch. "Whatever you're going to do it now!" Master Haronda drops from the tree, remaining beneath the protective cover of the other's barriers. As he falls, he begins to weave symbols into the air with his fingers before ever reaching the water. Upon landing, the Master Magician raises a giant earthen titan, standing upon the shoulders of the golem. Haronda continues to weave spells in the air, whispering occasionally to breathe life into the incantation. The golem grows larger and larger, piecing itself together with earth and stone. Towering above the tree line, the golem approaches the meteor with lumbering steps that shake the ground with rumbling tremors. Haronda struggles to continue feeding material into his creation, as the proximity to the fiery celestial body shears off large pieces. With one final scream, the Master orders his golem to deliver a rising punch to the meteor that sends it speeding back into the atmosphere. The impact of the punch shatters the barriers and flattens the area into a massive crater. The golem disintegrates, and Master Haronda is sent plummeting to the earth like a bullet. Haronda crawls out from beneath the remains of a large cypress tree. Around him, the swamp is now nothing more than a sunken field. Most of the water has been evaporated and the trees burned or broken. For nearly a mile in every direction, there is nothing but destruction. Fordron sits up with a cough, tossing an equally frightened and lucky bullfrog off his chest. "Were you trying to kill us or save us?" Fordron asks angrily. As he stands, the several feet deep water now barely covers the top of his boots. "You're welcome," Haronda replies, pulling the fragment of a limb from his thigh before consuming the puncture and the healing glow of Sandatu Hilez. "Hold off on healing anything serious until we can assess the status of the others. Some of them may require more urgent healing than us." Haronda nods, agreeing with the other master's assessment. One by one, the team is accounted for, and miraculously none are hurt worse than minor cuts and bruises, with the exception of Apprentice Katz, who has suffered a broken right arm. After resetting the wound, Master Haronda heals the young man as the others look around with mounting confusion and despair. "We can't fight against someone like this. He's just too strong," Abbott says, near tears. "Seriously, he dropped a meteor on us." Danny agrees. Not even the impressive Master Fordron is strong enough to defeat a magician willing to destroy the world just to slay his enemies. From the few displays of Scrimauer's power that she has seen, no one on the planet may be stronger than the rogue. Master Nando said that his team was defeated due to Scrimauer summoning the Saints, Fisher says, also near panic. We haven't reached him yet, and he's already nearly killed us several times. Fordron sees the morale of his team quickly fading. If he doesn't intervene soon, he will have no choice but to retreat in shameful defeat. Use sight being almost killed as a reason to be afraid, as a reason to give up and go home, Fordron says, raising his voice to be heard by all. We have not been killed. That bastard dropped a meteor on us, and we stand, each and every one of us. Take courage. He has challenged us, and we have responded with defiant conviction. Scrimauer is scared of us. He knows we are coming for him, and he cannot stop us. The team is filled with renewed spirits, and Danny observes that the Master's charisma extends to an uncanny ability to rally his troops, like a battlefield general or successful sports coach, pushing for the game-winning drive. 4 figures appear far ahead of them, emerging from the tree line where the swamp resumes untouched by the ravages of the meteor. Silently, the puppets weave hand signs to cast their spells. Without functioning internal organs, the dead are unable to create the sounds needed to make the incantations. I'm on it, Cat says, drawing his enchanted blade and rushing forward to meet the new enemies. Hold on! Fordron screams, a terrible feeling burning within him. All sound disappears, as everything goes white.